passes. So I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll start with roll call, please.
Councillor Foxton. Councillor Foxton. Councillor Harris.
So Sean, I have a quick Zoom meeting at 1:30, but I will come back in if that's okay.
Okay. Thanks for letting me know.
Councillor Jowett.
Here.
Councillor Kiefer. Councillor Kiefer. Chair Redmond. Chair Redmond. And Chair Strickland.
Yeah, I'm here. So we'll get started. Others will join us as we get going. So are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I guess that's just to you, Helen. No. Approval of minutes, August 6th. So we'll deal with the quorum matters and all that kind of stuff later. But any issues
Sean,
with the minutes?
Can I just inquire about a conflict of interest? I mean, I don't know. I do have a building that is subject to commercial property taxes. And I know that there have been some deferrals made, and I've actually realized the benefit of those deferrals, but I don't know if that's, considered a conflict in such a way. It's ideology of a policy, but I am benefiting from the deferral. I'm not making any money, but I'm at least being able to defer until December.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on that, Helen, but we don't have a specific report on that, I don't think. So general, Mr. Dyer, I saw you put your screen on. You want to make a comment?
I can give it a try, Mr. Chair. No, we don't have a specific report. There is reference to it in the slide deck of the summary of the actions that council and this committee have taken. Without this being misconstrued as legal advice, because I'm not a lawyer, I don't think the fact that you're a taxpayer in the region creates a conflict.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Craig.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. So you have an interest in common with all commercial property tax owners.
Right.
Similarly, when we pass tax rate increases, I own a property in Waterloo. I don't declare a conflict because I have an interest in common with all of the folks who own properties.
Fair enough. That makes complete sense. Thanks for the clarity.
Okay, great. Okay, so no issues on the minutes. So we're going to change the agenda up a little bit. We have, we've requested some more information on the digitization of planning records and approvals. And we are pleased to have with us consultants from the Perry Group. And maybe I'll turn over to Rod, and Rod, you can introduce them and we can go through the presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Strickland. So as we've been discussing as a committee, and staff, there's an obvious impact on the cost of development by unnecessary delays and complications in the planning process. And to the extent that this takes place, our community planning division has been working very diligently on trying to identify some of those encumbrances. We've gone through a Lean Six Sigma process, and that process has identified that development tracking systems have the potential to streamline the approvals process and take unnecessary delays out of it. So back in April of this year, we retained the Perry Group to prepare a business case for a development tracking system for regional planning. It will provide an evaluation of the existing situation, some of the options, and make recommendations about a development tracking system, which will look at things like phasing and budgeting and staff resources required. So the business requirements are being finalized now. Ben Perry and Prasanna, excuse me if I get this wrong, Gunasekara from the Perry Group are joining us here to present some of the details of their work to date and to take any questions by the committee. The Perry Group is well known in this particular field and has worked with many regions and cities across the country to streamline their processes and make sure we understand where development applications are at any given point in time. So with that, I will hand it over to the Perry Group.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rod, and welcome.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us here, and thanks for shuffling the agenda to accommodate our timeline. So, yeah, just as a follow-up to Rod's points there, we're municipal technology specialists, and that's what we really focus on. And we've been fortunate to work actually in the region over the last 10 years with the region and with area municipalities, actually. So we've done IT strategy work with Cambridge and Waterloo and Kitchener. We've worked with probably about 120 municipalities across Canada over the last decade. Prasanna and I are involved in the implementation of numerous development tracking systems. And we've helped a number of municipalities through this process or this evaluation process. What I wanted to talk about very briefly was a bit of context about the project, talk to you a little bit about the current state, and talk about what the future really looks like. So probably the first thing to talk about is really what is a development tracking system. I think, as you all know, the development process is fairly complex, multifaceted, multi-stakeholder process. Often long-running process, and with so many moving parts and people involved, the challenge is really keeping everyone on the same page and on track. So a development tracking system is really about establishing a single source of truth to manage the development application process from end to end, from the first application to the final rendering of the decision and build out. It should be accessible by all stakeholders. It should be open and transparent, and it should make use of what we might call internet era capabilities. So online applications, digital signatures, digital payments, document management, and alerts and notifications over sort of letters and more formal communications methods. So by making use of a portal, some GIS capabilities, some workflow management capabilities, we think and we've seen other communities speed and streamline their processes. So as Rod said, we were hired specifically to evaluate the region's current systems, perform an environmental scan, and look at other systems, all of the systems in use at the region to track aspects of development. Look at the market and develop some recommendations. And so you can see from these notes here, we've held a whole series of internal consultation with internal staff across all of the divisions, external agencies. We've worked with all of the area municipalities, and we've talked to the Home Builders Association as well. So all in the name of gathering requirements and understanding what the needs are. Our discovery work has indicated that we really got a very paper-driven process. In some respects, a bit of a black box process. And we've concluded pretty quickly, actually, that the existing technologies in planning built years ago in-house is unsustainable and doesn't meet the needs and really must be replaced. Other divisions are also using other systems as well, and that actually contributes to some confusions and inaccuracies. And so there's no single source of truth today. And what that means is that gathering information to answer key questions about planning revenues, workloads, projected populations, these types of things, important to strategic decision-making, that information is not really available in real time. So that's a current state. What sort of things should the future state look like? Well, we talked to the home builders and they really want visibility into the process. They want to be able to apply online, but they want to be able to see where applications are in the process. And they want that visibility to create some accountability for those people that are involved in processing the applications. Staff want manual, repetitive, duplicative sort of processes and tasks removed so that they can spend less time administering the process and more time, adding value to the process. And the policy and management and leadership teams that we've talked to really want easier access to up-to-date information in real time to contribute to the strategic decision-making process. So that means really what we envisage and what other communities have implemented is a process or a set of tools that allow an applicant to log into a secure portal, to submit their application, to upload all of the relevant documents that they need to support their application, the drawings and the data and the studies that are necessary, to pay online, not necessarily with a credit card. Some of these transactions are expensive, so electronic funds transfer. And then the system starts to do some of its magic. It figures out who it needs to consult with. So if we're close to an LRT line or a proposed LRT line, the application will get sent to those people to comment. If we're in a floodplain, we'll make sure the relevant people need to comment. So the system helps manage all of those processes, and people that are involved in the development process comment online in a shared system, which is visible to everybody. So we're not managing this stuff through emails and messages. We're managing this stuff in something that everybody can see, and status, changes, tasks or delayed tasks are clear to everybody in the process. So it's important, I think, when you're thinking about these types of projects to really think about what are the business outcomes. The goal is not to implement a system. The goal is to achieve improvements to the service. And, we've all heard software vendors promise things, but we've really seen these types of benefits in other communities that have implemented these types of technologies. So Calgary, Edmonton, and various other municipalities have gone down this road, maybe a decade ago. So we really believe that we can eliminate a lot of administrative time, freeing up planning staff. We believe that we can move services so that applicants are applying online and we've got visibility across the process. We think that we can improve the speed of application processing by up to 25%. So I think there's lots and lots of sort of value add and opportunity there. And really, one of the other pieces of important advantages is by managing data through the system or applications through the system, we get real-time information that can help us make important decisions. So I want to be clear that this is not the region doing something cutting or bleeding edge. This is a tried and tested path that actually in the GTA, a number of other municipalities have done. York Region recently implemented a similar development tracking system, and talking to them, they really called it a game changer for their organization to have a single source of information, a reliable central source of information. And the other municipalities are in varying stages of implementing. One of the best things about municipalities is we share and we can steal good ideas and best practices and learn from their experiences. So I think there's some real value there. We don't want to imply that this is easy. It's a complicated business process, as you know. Projects get harder the more organizations you involve and the more departments you span. Typically, this is an 18 to 24 month project. You typically would focus first on internal process improvements. before delivering some of the digital aspects. Other clients that we've been working with, other municipalities that we just referenced, have been spending around this sort of $2 million mark. So this is sort of $1 million to $1.8 million that we've seen RFPs awarded for. There are additional costs, of course, associated with the implementation in terms of people inside the organization, in terms of change management and these types of things. So I think that it's clear to us that there's a significant opportunity here. There are significant benefits to be reaped with, economic and community benefits for sure. We're wrapping up the project. We're getting to the point of providing our final deliverable in terms of a final report towards the start of October. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but I hope I've given you a bit of a sense of what that project's all about.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. That is very exciting and cutting edge. I have a couple questions, but I'll ask committee members first if they have any questions. Helen or Carl. Councillor Jowett.
Thanks, Sean. I'm actually looking at this and going, where have you guys been? Oh my goodness, staff must be so excited, eh, Rod?
Yeah, we're very pleased about the work that's taking place, and it's fitting well into our ongoing process improvement efforts that Michelle Sergi is leading with the planning division.
So am I to understand then, listening to the presentation, that if there was a GRCA implication such as a wetland or protected lands or even provincially significant lands, then there'd be like an automatic notification to the GRCA planning staff to be triggered into the process?
Yes, that's right. And there's various different options for implementation, but they could then log into the regional system to provide their comments online. Those things will automatically go back to the planner in charge, or add attachments and those types of things. The idea being that we're not shipping drawings and documents all the way around. We've got a central place for people to be able to access those things.
It's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thanks, Councillor Jowett. Councillor Kiefer, do you have a question?
No, sorry, I joined the meeting late. I was caught up in traffic, if you will.
Okay. No worries. So, Ben, I just have a couple of questions. One is that I saw the benefits of the system, and I appreciate that. Can you give me like a tangible example of a benefit that's occurred in York region because of implementing the system?
One of the justifications for York to make the investment in such a system was this ability to have more real-time information. And so they have some real challenges in terms of servicing water and the allocations of servicing around that. And what they were running into trouble with was really being able to manage the data around that and being able to manage that allocation. So the development tracking system has helped them much more effectively be able to manage that, which is allowing the pipeline of development to be less encumbered for sure. Another real big driver for them was to create a clearer understanding of when capital needs would be. So the business justification for implementing the system was really so that they could have clearer idea of when build out would be achieved or when building would be happening, which would lead to them being able to make more accurate decisions about capital forecasting. So delaying a capital investment on a major water service or another sort of capital investment, roadways and these types of things, that being able to delay those activities leads to less debt financing and those types of things, which is cost effective for the organization. And the final point is really just around the efficiency of the team. prior to the development tracking system, multiple versions of the same information was stored in multiple different places, and a significant amount of time was spent chasing the right information. So, as you know, the development process involves multiple iterations, and so quite often, somebody might be referring to the wrong version of a document or a drawing, and so a huge amount of staff efficiencies have been achieved there. I don't have numbers for you, right in front of my hands, but they certainly have seen these types of benefits.
Well, thanks for that, Ben, because my next question was going to be, what's the cost benefit in dollar terms or the return on an investment? But your example there of water and wastewater and how we have to front load those costs based on planned subdivision developments without really knowing what the overall impact of the system is going to be. We're just going on a historical kind of record. So having that real-time data may be able to afford us the opportunity, as also as consumption goes down with new technologies and housing and multi-residential development, may be able to delay those expenditures and maybe better align the debt financing with the increased use required, rather than front loading it years in advance, trying to line it up. So that makes really good sense to me. And for $2 million, that's money well spent if you're able just to achieve that.
Yes, I think, anecdotally, the region of York, as we were working on that project, felt they were building things multiple years too early.
Yeah.
On reflection, they were building those things too early. And so, yes, when you say $2 million for a system, it sounds expensive. But when you say $2 million in comparison to a $600 million capital ask, it's actually not as expensive as it seems, right?
Right.
I think you're bang on.
Exactly. Okay, I don't see any further questions for Ben and his team, but I do have a question for staff. And so maybe, Ben, you want to hang around for a little bit. Just in terms of our contract with the Perry Group and the integration with our coterminous municipalities on this system, like for this to really deliver the greatest amount of value, we need all of the municipalities in the region to be plugged into the system and heading in the same direction. So Rod or Michelle, if you could comment on that.
Well, I'll let Michelle provide a little bit more detailed answer, but I would say that we're very, very keenly aware of the need for any system that we build in the future to be able to communicate effectively with the area municipalities. They each have individual systems. Some of them are the same, but there is some variability between the municipalities. But this is a very top of mind issue for us. And Michelle's had considerable discussion with her colleagues in the area municipal planning divisions on this. Michelle?
Thanks, Rod, and through the chair. So yes, we have had conversations with the area municipalities through this process, as well as through our Lean Six Sigma work that we're doing with them. And this is certainly a topic that's come up as an opportunity multiple times. The cities are currently using Amanda to do a lot of their tracking. So at a minimum, this system would need to be able to interact directly with that system so that we could coordinate our work on an ongoing basis. And so that would be really important as well. There's a real opportunity with the townships as well. Most of them don't have systems in place where we could take this and then expand the system to provide them with both sort of that local and regional service to ensure the integration. So I think there's the opportunity for that integration, but there's also the opportunity in terms of a transparency for it to be sort of a one-stop shop where all of that information could be available to the public, both from the area municipalities and the region in one specific location.
So am I hearing you correctly then that at a minimum, our coterminous municipalities, their system will be integrated, be able to interface, not integrated, interface with our system. And in some cases, if they adopt the same system, be more integrated. And what's the likelihood of integration versus interface?
You want me to jump in here? Do you mind?
Sure, that'd be great.
So I think it's a really good question. The fact is that the area municipalities use their systems for not just planning. They use them for permitting, licensing, bylaw, and various other things. There's no intent here to replace or any of those types of things for those municipalities. So interface is really this idea of sort of sharing, but integrate is about passing information between systems. So it's really that we're looking for. So we have been talking with the team about, if you imagine today, some planning applications go to the area municipality and are typed into a system, and then the material comes to the region and somebody else types it into another system. So the idea there would be, hey, whoever receives that information first, can we build integrations that allow that data to flow from one place to another? So that's really the idea behind it. Now, this is ambitious stuff to tackle. The starting point is to get the basics in place, which is managing the development approvals process at the region. And then iteratively, we would build out those, think about building out those interfaces. So any system that we purchase to be implemented has to have those capabilities to support that integration. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I appreciate that. And the reason I asked that question, and with our coterminous municipalities, and they have various degrees of functionality and resources available. But about 15 years ago, we have three acute care hospitals in Waterloo Region, and 15 years ago, they all started this digitization process, and each hospital chose a different system. So there was absolutely no information sharing, and patients will go to one hospital, then they'll go to another, and they have to get re-entered into. So to whatever extent we can avoid that, some 20 years later for this process, I think would be very much appreciated. Councillor Kiefer.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Strickland. My question, I think, would be to staff. Looks like this would be a very attractive system to have, but how would we go about? Would we cost share this with all the municipalities in the region? Everybody paying a portion, and how would we go about that? I don't know, Craig, if you got any, or Rod, if you got any idea of that or how that would work.
Well, I can give it a try. I'm not sure at this point that that the conversations with the area municipalities have gone that far. I know I have yet to have any conversations with my counterparts, treasurers at the area municipalities. I would say from the perspective of managing expectations, I think we'll be looking at this project, in the context of numerous corporate technology projects that are going to be under consideration for next year. And we'll have to look into the anticipated costs, effort, opportunities to collaborate with the area municipalities is a big one, of course, resources in multiple departments and other factors as we prioritize various projects. And if this is a project that we intend to proceed with on, in short order, then obviously some conversations with the area municipalities will be needed in order to assess A, their interest, and B, their willingness to pay.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me, Craig. And of course, to make an investment of this nature, I would think would be, significant for them to try and buy into it. Let's put it that way. But I hear what you're saying. Thanks.
Hey, thank you. I see no further questions. The final question would be for staff, next steps.
Well, Michelle, we're getting close to the end of this process, this analysis, and if I understand correctly, we'll be putting together a report that'll be discussed internally, and then at some point we'll be able to report to council on the outcomes of the final analysis. Michelle?
Okay. Okay, hopefully, and that's going to feed into the budget process, Craig, or? Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, perfect, great. Well, thanks, Ben and Prasanna. Thank you very much. We have no further questions. Very exciting project. It's great work that you do, helping municipalities manage their finances and giving taxpayers the best bang for their buck. So we appreciate that.
Got it. Thanks
All
very
right,
much.
thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so going with the agenda then, the next presentation is from Craig, and we asked, this is our last committee meeting, and maybe that's part of the reason why our attendance isn't as great as it should have been. Maybe should never have announced that ahead of time. That's probably, I've been around long enough, I should have learned that lesson before. But Craig, maybe you can just quickly take us through the slide deck that you so kindly put together for us about our accomplishments and recommendations. And I think the plan would be to wrap this up with the report to council directly or to admin and finance at committee of the whole.
Yep. So thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm assuming people can hear me and can see the slide deck?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'll go through this fairly quickly. Certainly the first few slides anyway. This is all back from when the committee was originally put together, and there's 4 specific focus areas that the group was going to look at, which I think largely has been accomplished. We all know what the reporting and membership was, as well as the term of office being an approximately 6-month term. So just by way then of quick summary, there was a number of actions that council had taken back in the early part of the pandemic, March, April timeframe, and then specific actions that this committee has undertaken. So very briefly, starting with some of the ones back in the spring, the waiving of late payment charges and interest costs, worked with the area municipalities, and they of course waived interest and penalties for at least 3 months, and then put in place an application-based property tax deferral program. The region deferred, among other things, the landfill tipping fee increase that was planned for April, the transit fare increase that was planned for July the 1st, provided a couple of months of free transit, and of course also chose not to go forward with planned service expansions this fall. Region also provided a $50,000 grant to help with a startup with respect to nonprofit PPE. From an economic perspective, supported the economy through the continuation of our investments in infrastructure. We conducted a review of our capital, concluded that the majority were in some way committed and will continue to be implemented. I think the committee was quite supportive of that. And then prepared through the planning group, parking and pop-up patio guidelines for temporary patios on regional roads, worked collaboratively with the area municipalities to make that happen back in late spring, early summer. And also through our economic development office, worked with Best Waterloo Region to continue their advocacy for programs to support the business community through the pandemic. Worked collaboratively with respect to talent attraction and retention, as well as the ongoing efforts on investment attraction. Working also with the area municipal economic development offices, and also helped to facilitate town halls with the business community and the region's medical officer of health. Looking to the actions taken by this committee back in July, we had a conversation about tax policy, which was one of those 4 original areas identified to look at. Passed a resolution that the region advocates to the province to expedite reduction of business education tax rates to provide relief to commercial industrial properties. And I think if we think back to that slide deck, the education taxes represents a significant portion of the overall non-residential tax bill. And we know the province has been working towards reducing those rates, and the region has advocated to accelerate that. The committee also held a public meeting, you recall, back on the 16th of July, with the intent of engaging the business community and hear firsthand how the region could support local economic recovery. And the input, that we had, I think was helpful, focused on a number of different areas, number of different tools and approaches that we could take to help. And I think gave the committee a clear understanding of where the needs and challenges are. At its meeting on August 6th, a series of resolutions was passed by the committee. Again, going back to infrastructure, continuing investments set out in the capital program, some advocacy with the province and federal governments with respect to the approval of applications through the Investing in Canada infrastructure program. This applied to both the communities and culture and recreation stream and the transit stream. And I think, we're continuing to work with the province with respect to the IKIP transit stream, in particular, looking to get a commitment on the opening of the second intake. We had 15 or 16 projects approved through intake 1 that are in various stages right now, but we want to get that second intake opened so that any projects approved in the 2021 capital program can be approved expeditiously. Also advocated to the province to approve funding for the Kitchener Go expansion project. And then also directing staff, as we're putting the next capital forecast together, to look at it through the lens of, are there any specific projects that would provide a significant economic multiplier effect and impact from a local economy perspective. So we'll be looking at that as we put that budget together. And then finally, at the same meeting in August, resolutions passed with respect to the the planning process, directing staff to continue to work with the area municipalities to identify applications that will facilitate development, and also to look for opportunities to streamline the development approval process. That was part of what we heard today, and to keep the ad hoc committee and presumably council up to date on labor force, building permit, and development activity on a regular basis. So, Mr. Chair, that's a summary of the actions taken by both council and by this committee over the last several months. And I think, staff are available on the call to answer any questions that you might have.
Well, thank you very much, Craig. And I think, this is very beneficial exercise. We've been meeting for a number of months now, and staff have been supporting the process as well as other external agencies, and the community has really banded together the best way we can to put into place measures now and also into the future to help with recovery. So I thank you and staff for that slide deck, but also for all the work that you've done through this process. One comment I would have is in terms of the capital infrastructure, Craig, if we're going to package this up and send this to council as kind of like the final report, I would just put a number in there on because we did defer some transit capital expenditures, rightfully so, but the rest of our capital program continued on. And I don't know how many millions of dollars, like last night we awarded at least $20 million worth of tenders. So I think it's important to emphasize that we're continuing to do what we need to do based on our strong financial position to build the infrastructure the region needs. If we could quantify that, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, we can take a look at that. You may recall when the committee had met earlier in the summer, I think we showed a list at that time of the significant tenders that had been awarded to date, and we can easily update that list. Yeah,
well, including the one for the bus terminal, $110 million, I think it was, for the bus terminal up on Northfield.
That was on the top of the list.
Yeah. It would be for $110 million bucks.
Absolutely.
Okay, so when do you think we would have this kind of packaged up and presented to council, Craig?
Well, let me just make sure first I understand what you're looking for. Is it perhaps an updated and slightly expanded version of the slides that we just showed, or is it a
Exactly.
staff report? Okay.
Exactly. Staff report information, just the, the accomplishments to date of the ad hoc advisory committee, ad hoc economic recovery committee, and the future initiatives, which is basically the review of the capital budget, which will happen during the budget process. And that's what I think we need. I don't know, Councillor Kiefer, do you have any suggestions on that?
No, I think you're on the right track there, Councillor Strickland. I think that'd be excellent to have that as a guideline for sure.
Yeah. Does that make sense, Craig, Rod?
Yep. Yeah, I think it does. And Mr. Chair, without having spoken to my colleague about it, I would suggest the October 27th cycle is quite achievable.
Okay, great. And Rod, it would also set the table for the staff report on the digitization of planning records.
Yep.
So I think, if we're able to time this report comes first and then that other report comes afterwards, because the cost benefit of digitization, is pretty self-evident to me. And it's something that I think is being, shall we say, lagging for not want of trying, but lagging in our community for some time.
I'll have a discussion with Michelle and with Craig about this, but I think if you're suggesting the November cycle, I think we are far enough along in this process to provide at least an information report that could subsequently inform discussions in the November cycle of committee.
Okay, great. So I think that's it, unless there's any other questions or comments. All right, great. Thanks very much. Thanks again. And I think this is the last meeting that we've agreed to. The structure's in place. If the second wave comes and we're dealing with more economic hardship, hopefully that's not going to be the case, but I'm sure we could easily reconstitute the committee if required as we go forward. So good work, everyone.
Sean, I just wanted to say thank you. Did a great job as chair, and I wanted to thank other members of the committee and also staff for doing a great job. I think this is all good stuff. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Carl. Thanks a lot. All right. Thanks, everyone. Stay safe.